from Hollywood at the Improv, it's the Nighttime Show. I'm Mike Black, the voice of the Nighttime Show. With us, as always, our head writer, Matt Walker. Today, we have cinematic royalty on the show. The executive producer of Netflix, The Other Side of the Wind, Grammy winner and Oscar-nominated screenwriter and director for The Last Picture Show, filmmaking legend Peter Bogdanovich. And now, a man who's been to Paris, Texas for the French fries. Put your hands together at home for Stephen Kramer Glickman!
Oh, my God. Mike Black, our wonderful announcer. Well done, sir. Well done.
Yes.
Applause. Really, very, very impressive. Peter Bogdanovich, this is a pretty big deal. It's a big deal that we have you on the show.
Oh, well, it's nice to be on the show.
I saw the film The Other Side of the Wind, and it is extraordinary and fascinating. It's currently on Netflix. 40 years it took to make this film. I would love to just hear from you a little bit about how this came to be and how you ended up getting positioned to have to take care of this film and bring it to light, because I know that it got stuck. It got stuck for a while there.
Yeah, I did for about 20 years or something. What happened was, oh Christ, I don't remember exactly how it started, but Orson said to me at one point, I know it was how it started. I interviewed a lot of the older directors, like that he liked, like Howard Hawks and The King Vidor and so on. All the kind of legendary directors were still around. A lot of them were still around this is in the 60s. And I had a long talk with Orson about John Ford being out, about all these older directors being considered over the hill, too old. And Orson got very upset about that. And he said, I guess I should make that movie I've been wanting to make for years, he said, about an older director. And he said, it's only in old age that the great geniuses come out. And he says, don't send them away. It was very emotional. Anyway, so from then on, he started talking about this script that he was working on, and it was called a lot of things, but I think the final decision was The Other Side of the Wind. And I don't know how I got the part, but I think he just asked me if I would play a part in it. And I said, sure. And that was quite an experience.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. And we shot, a lot of it we shot in a place called, what is the time? It was in Arizona, Carefree. That's it. Carefree, Arizona, which is about as far from the truth as we were. We were not carefree. We were anything but carefree. Anyway, so I went there and shot as an actor. I worked with Orson for about a couple of weeks, and that was it. And then he picked up some stuff at his house in Los Angeles, the house he rented for a while. And it went on for a long time, and the shooting didn't take that long, but afterward, there were some problems with money, and one guy ran off with $200,000. And this was tough for Orson, and he really couldn't ever finish cutting it, really finally finished, do the final cut, because money people and money stolen and just a lot of crap. And he had a hard time, Orson did. And so at some point, he says to me, he turned to me, I think we were having something to eat or something. He just turned to me out of the blue and said, if anything ever happens to me, I want you to promise me you'll finish the picture. I said, I said, nothing's going to happen to you. Why did you say that? I know nothing's going to happen, but if it does, I want you to promise me you'll finish the picture. You're the only person I can trust. Wow. I said, well, Jesus, of course I will, Orson, but nothing's going to happen to me. All right, well, now we can change the subject.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
So when he died, I did everything I could to finish. It took me, I don't know how many years it was since he died in 60. No, he died in 85.
Yeah.
And since then, since 85 until about a year and a half ago.
But how do you even approach? I mean, once there's money, to be able to finish it. Once you have there's budget and things to get it done. This is a movie that most of the film was shot in between 1970 and 1976. How do you finish making a film in present day with footage from that time?
Well, we had all the footage. He'd shot everything. We didn't shoot anything. But Frank Marshall, who had worked on the picture when Orson was directing, has a company called Kennedy Marshall, and he's quite a heavyweight in the movie business now. He started as my assistant when he was 18.
Holy crap!
So I called Frank, and I got Frank onto the Orson's picture. So I said, Orson needs help. So Frank worked on the picture for shooting for a while. And so I called him. I said, let's finish this picture for Orson. He said, great. So we worked on it, and we arranged it, and somehow we got somebody to pay for it. I can't remember exactly who. I think Netflix came into it at some point. It's all a blur.
Yeah.
Thank you, whoever paid for it. If you happen to be listening.
So it was. It took us a while, about a year or so, to finish it. Maybe more. I don't know. And that's it.
And were there like rights issues that you had to deal with, or by that point, where pretty much everybody was like, "Hey, we're never going to do anything with it." It wasn't that hard to get a hold of the rights to do it.
There were problems, but Frank Marshall took care of most of that.
Okay,
that's amazing.
He didn't involve me in it really. He just had to get the rights, and there were some people I did speak with and so on. But it was all agreed that for Orson's sake we would all pitch in and do the best we could, and that meant some people who had rights had to be signed off and so on.
I mean, it's an incredible thing to be able to bring something to light after it sitting for so long. I mean, for the world to get to see John Huston again on film, doing something fresh and amazing. Like
John was great. He was great in the picture, I thought, and he was spectacular. At one point, he and Orson liked to pick on me, so I was the youngest one in the room. So he said, John says to me at one point, we're waiting to shoot something, and he says, "How many pictures have you acted in, Peter?" And I said, 1. And he said, "That's not very many." Which broke Orson up completely. Orson was laughing. He was behind the camera. He said, "That's not very many." Oh, well.
I heard a story.
That would be a totally different film. Just those two bullying you.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
It was fun, though.
It sounds like it.
I had heard a story about you on set with him where Orson didn't want to break for lunch. It was something about him. We've heard some stories over the years about Orson Welles and lunch and food. And
that was a funny story. What happened was we were shooting, I think at Carefree or somewhere, yeah. And Frank and I was sitting with Orson, and Frank comes over and says to Orson, rather under his breath, he says, "Orson, the crew's been here since 7:30, and it's been 12 or 11, 1 o'clock." He said, "They're kind of hungry. They'd like to go to lunch." "All right, I'm not hungry. If the crew wants to go to eat lunch, let them go. Well, I'm going to stay here." And I said, "I'm not hungry. I'll stay with yours." "Or fine. Or Peter and I will stay here while the crew goes to lunch." Oh, God.
Well,
he was so funny.
Did you guys, as soon as they left, did you guys order lunch?
The minute they left, Orson, about 5 minutes after they left, Orson turns to me and says, "Are you hungry? Because I'm absolutely starving." I said I could eat. Fine. And somebody got us some sandwiches or something. I thought it was funny. The funniest thing was, it wasn't funny at the time, but John Huston, when you forget a line, when actors forget a line, they say either "line, please," or I'm up, what's the line? Or they just say, "I don't know what I'm supposed to say here." John never did that. What he would do is he would say something.
Yeah.
It maybe had nothing to do with what the line was. It could have been, nothing to do with the line, just like something about. And he would say the line, whatever it was, something that hadn't made no sense, and then he'd walk off camera, leaving me on camera saying, "What?" what was that? And Orson laughed. He thought it was very funny.
Oh my god,
Now,
that's incredible.
I like the move of leaving.
Yeah.
Like just walking off.
I know I'm ruining things here, but I'm just gonna escape and leave the other actor to deal with it.
I had
That's right.
heard,
That's what he did.
I had
It
heard
was
that
hilarious.
at some point Robert De Niro was doing a play in the West End, and the phone rang, and he answered the phone and said, I think it would answer. The phone rang by accident, and so he picked up the phone and he said, they need me. I must go. Goodbye," and then walked off the stage and left the play right in the middle.
Oh, Jesus.
I love when people do things
Yeah.
like that.
Now, you were able to interview and work with a lot of the legendary directors in this business. What about Orson Welles made him different from some of the other? Like, what makes Orson Welles so different from, say, John Ford?
Oh, Jesus.
Other than the names, the obvious.
Orson was the youngest director I interviewed. All the rest of them were in their late 60s or 70s, or even a couple of them in their 80s. But Orson was young compared to them, and he was just he was very easy to talk with if he liked you, and you could go anywhere with him. And he was. I really enjoyed his friendship because it was great to talk to him about it, and if you talk about anything.
What was he like when you first met him?
Well, I had written a monograph for the Museum of Modern Art when in connection with the first retrospective of Orson's work in the United States, which was in 1961, believe it or not, at the Museum of Modern Art in New York.
Oh yeah.
And I tried to reach him at that time, but he was in Europe shooting the trial, and I couldn't get to him, so I didn't speak to him. And when I finished the monograph, I sent it to him in Europe, wherever he was. Sent a couple of copies. Didn't hear anything for 7 years.
Oh my God!
7 years later, I'm now in Los Angeles, having done a movie, my first movie, and I get a call out of the blue. It's Orson. Hello, Peter Bogdanovich. Yes, speaking. Who's this? Although I kind of recognize what he's. It's Orson Welles. Wow. Hi, how are you? He says, "I can't tell you how long I've wanted to meet you." And I said, wait a minute, that's my line. He laughed and said, I said, "Why did you want to meet me?" "Because you have written the truest words ever published about me." Pause. In English. and we got along very well. And I brought him, besides coming to meet him, I brought a copy of a book of mine that has just been published called John Ford. And I knew that Orson was a big fan of Ford's, and so I gave him this little paperback book. And after about an hour or so, he was leafing through the book, kind of flipping through it. It was a paperback. And he said, "Isn't it too bad you're a big director now? You can't do a little book like this about me." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Oh, Orson, I'd love to do an interview book with you. Fine, let's do it."
Wow.
And that was that.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And that went on for years. He wanted to do the book because he wanted to set the record straight, and we did a long series of interviews.
What was that? Which book was that? Was that This Is Orson Welles? Or
Yes.
This
Is Orson Welles.
Wow, that's incredible.
And the sad thing is that he wanted to set the record straight, and it didn't come out until, I don't know, several years after he died, really, 7 years, I think, because of various reasons. But we did finally get it out, and it's all right.
I love it. That's fantastic. That's really, really incredible.
And he saw my first picture. He ran it at Columbia in New York when he was there before he came out to meet with me. And he didn't say much about it, but he liked it. He said it was a historic target. He said, "Well done," or something like that.
Wow.
Did you do you feel like the work that you did as a director that you learned a lot about that, like because I know you did so many interviews with so many incredible directors, with Alfred Hitchcock, which I would love to hear about. But do you think that helped out when you started directing and writing yourself?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, it did. I had directed in the theater. I'd done about 4 or 5. I directed 4 or 5 shows in the theater in New York and so on.
What shows? Any can you?
Well, I did summer theater. I went to, where was it? Traverse City, Michigan.
Oh wow! Really?
Yeah, I did a season of summer theater there when I think I was 20 or something, 19. I don't remember what it was, 60 something. And it was what they don't do anymore. It was called kind of summer stock, because we did in a big tent in Michigan, and every week a different sort of name would come. They weren't the top names, but they were pretty good names if you knew pictures. Mm-hmm. People like Zazu Pitts and Sidney Blackmer and Lillian Gish.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And those kind of people. And I was involved in that. I was a kid. I was just a kid. I was 18 or something. No, I was even younger. And I played a lead in the 7th week. I played Senia Hasso's son, and it was a lot of fun. And she told me I got more laughs than the guy who did it on Broadway. And
wow.
That was nice. That was the first thing I did. I think I was 16 or something. And so I did a season of that, and then I did 4 summers. I did summer theater all around the country. And then when I was 20, actually, I directed the first play off Broadway. I did a revival of Clifford Odets' play, The Big Knife, and it was well received and well received. And so by the time I directed my first film, I'd already worked on a bunch of films, not as a director, but as an assistant, for example, to Roger Corman on a couple of pictures, and then he had me direct the second unit, actually. So.
Oh yeah,
and I'd worked with actors, and I studied acting for 4 years with Stella Adler, in New York. Mm-hmm. When I was still in high school, I took the afternoons off from the sports events and worked with Stella Adler.
What was Stella Adler
in New York?
You were working with Stella Adler and Roger Corman at the same time.
That's
no. Roger was later.
Was later. I was like, that is amazing.
What can you tell us about Stella Adler? Because
she was great.
Oh, that's
she
amazing.
She was divine.
God,
she was a wonderful woman. I got very close with her. She sort of became my second mother.
Wow.
In fact, she was around after my mother died. She was very sweet to me. And I'll tell you what happened. About directing in the theater. I was studying with Stella for about 4 years, and I think the first or second year, I was having a cup of coffee with a bunch of actors, 5 actors, at a cafe, cafe near the studio where she worked. And I don't know why I said this, but I looked at the 5 actors and I said, "Why don't I direct you guys in a scene?" And they all said, "Oh, okay." Mm-hmm. If you did a scene in scene class, it was either two people doing a two-hander, or it was a monologue.
Yeah.
When we went into the class, we went in, and 5 actors suddenly get up on the stage and rearrange the furniture and so on, and they did it. And Stella, and when it was over, by the way, it was a scene from The Big Knife, by Clifford Odets. It was one of the last scenes in the 3rd act, and it was 5 actors, 5 characters. So that was it. And so when it was over, the class applauded, and Stella stood up and said, "Brilliant, darlings, but you've been directed. Who directed you?" And they all pointed. I was standing way in the back of the studio, and they said, "Peter." And she turned to me and she said, "Brilliant, darling. Bravo."
Wow! Oh my God! That's like being knighted.
Yeah, it was. It was like that. Yeah. And then I thought, "Oh, geez, maybe I should direct this as off Broadway." And one of the actors, as luck would have it, one of the actors knew Clifford Odets and gave me his address, and I wrote to him. I wrote him a 2-page, single-spaced letter, typed, and sent it to him in Los Angeles.
Stephen wrote...
He wrote back about just about a week later in pencil. He wrote on Fox stationery, because he was making a picture at Fox, and he said, "You have here in my permission the rights to make an off-Broadway production of The Big Knife."
Wow!
And that was the start of my career as a director.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, we got one. Here's one for you.
Steven wrote a director once. Would you like to tell him how that went?
Sure. I went to the American Musical Dramatic Academy in New York City and studied Stanislavski and as much as I could. And when we were finishing school, I decided I wanted to put on a play off Broadway, and the play I wanted to put on was Suburbia by Eric Bogosian. And so I cast it with a bunch of friends and other actors from the school, and I reached out to the Theater Works or whoever owned the rights, and they said, we're sorry, but there has never been an off-Broadway production of Suburbia. It was on Broadway. They do it at colleges, but we don't allow rights for off-Broadway. And I said, can I write a letter to Eric Bogosian to explain why I should be the one to direct the first off-Broadway production? And they said, yeah, give it a shot. Who cares? Whatever. And I wrote a letter. I, printed it out, and we put it in an envelope, and I sent it off to Eric Bogosian. And I got a letter back from him saying, yes, you can direct the first off-Broadway production of the show. That if you're so passionate about it, fine, we'll grant you the rights. And I
what
said,
did you do then,
yes.
Stephen?
And I said, thank you so much. Here's 57 notes I have on the script to change it, to update it to present day, because you said in your script that it's supposed to take place in present day, and I don't want to alter the script without you being comfortable with that. So I sent him back 57 notes. And he wrote back, "You ballsy motherfucker! You can change these 15." And that was it.
Yeah.
That was
great. Good for you.
And that's why you do not have an Oscar nomination.
I do
Stephen.
not have an Oscar nomination. Yes, that is
Your career's on a very different path.
Yeah, well, I try. I tried my best.
Yes.
Hey, a quick thing I want to talk about, Mike Black. I think this is something that we really should talk about, and it's a company that was founded in 1983 in Tokyo, Japan. Of course, I'm talking about the Zoom Corporation.
Zoom.
Now, if it wasn't for Zoom, and Matt knows this, we would not be able to do our show. They make the best audio equipment in the world. Which one are we using right now?
We're recording onto a Zoom LiveTrack L8 right now, and when we go do our live events at conventions and stuff, we often use the Zoom H6, and they're both just fantastic pieces of equipment. You plug your microphones in, you plug your headphones in, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, whether you're a classically trained pianist or a run-and-gun filmmaker or a podcaster like us.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do a ton of podcasts, and I can tell by listening when they're using a Zoom and when they're not.
Yeah,
It's the mark of excellence.
It really is. Go check it. Go check out all their stuff over at zoom-na.com. That's zoom-na.com. Be professional, for God's sake. Zoom-na.com. All right. Okay, let's get back to the show.
Can we talk about your early, when you were coming up?
Oh, I want to talk about Corman. We got to talk about Roger Corman.
Yeah, of course,
I mean, how did that happen?
Again, a coincidence. I was married at that point to Polly Platt, and I said, and there was a movie that a director I kind of liked, French director named Jacques Demy, and he had a new film that had just opened called, I can't remember which picture it was now, something, and I said, let's go see that. We went to see it. And we went. It wasn't a screening. It was a performance in the theater where it was playing. And we went and sat down, and behind us, as it turned out, was somebody who knew me and whom I knew, and he was with somebody that knew somebody that was with me besides Polly. And the other person that was there was Roger Corman, and they introduced me to him.
Wow.
And I said, "Hi, Roger," and so on. And he says to me, "I read your stuff in Esquire. Would you ever think about writing a movie?" I said, "Yeah, love to." And that's how I got that job.
Wow. Didn't he kind of before he let you direct your own thing, he kind of made you finish a few of his films?
No, what happened was I was his assistant on The Wild Angels, which he did with Peter Fonda and Nancy Sinatra and Bruce Dern. And
what a cast.
I was on the picture through the whole shoot, Roger's whole shoot, and the bikers didn't like him. because he never said thank you and he never said please. I think that was it. And they didn't like him.
It's
So
weird
I
that
was
they
always
disliked him for courtesy issues.
That's it. Isn't that funny? So I was next to him. I was standing next to him a lot of the time because I'd be leaning over and whispering in his ear, try this. He asked me to give him notes and so on. The first thing he asked me to do was rewrite the script. He said, listen, I've got 10 pages of notes here from the writer, and he wouldn't I couldn't get past the third one, the third note. I need you to do a rewrite. I said, all right. I can give you $300 and no credit. I said, all right, okay, sure. I did a rewrite. There was practically the whole script, really. And then he would say to me, "Look, read this sequence we're going to shoot tomorrow, and design it for me. Would you give me some ideas for shots?" So I did that, and he did all the shots, and except a couple. And I'd say, "Why don't you do that?" And anyway, so we were quite close. And at one point, he says to me, they were doing a scene with fighting between the townies and the bikers, and we didn't have enough people for the townies. So Roger turns to me and says, "Go ahead, run in there, be a townie." So I run in there, and the bikers are beating up the townies, and because I was Roger's assistant, they particularly disliked me. They particularly started beating me up. I said, "Fuck this," and I just fell down to the ground and lay there.
Oh my God.
And then he gave me a couple of sequences, he gave me actually quite a few shots and a couple of sequences to direct after he wrapped, because he did not want to go over his schedule. Mm-hmm. He's a stickler for that. So I took over and I directed. It wasn't second unit because I directed Peter and Nancy in a couple of scenes, and I directed Bruce Dern in a big sequence.
Wow!
He used all that, and the picture was his most successful picture, Roger. And so he comes to me after the picture came out and was a big success. He said, "Listen, Boris Karloff owes me 2 days' work." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I'd like you to shoot 20 minutes with Karloff. You can shoot 20 minutes in 2 days. I've shot whole pictures in 2 days."
Of course.
And they
so
were
then I'd like
awesome.
you to get some other actors together and shoot about another 20 minutes for a few days with some other actors. And then I want you to take the picture I did with Karloff called The Terror. It's not a great picture, but I'd like you to take 40 minutes of stuff from The Terror. Now you've got 40 minutes of new stuff between Karloff and the actors. And then I'll have a new 80-minute Karloff picture. Are you interested? I said, "Oh, sure." So that was the beginning of Targets.
Wow. Oh, my God.
Then I was shaving one morning, and I was thinking, what the fuck could I do with this goddamn 2 days with Karloff? And The Terror, which we ran, is one of the worst films ever made. It's just not Roger only directed bits of it. It was directed by everybody else. Coppola directed some of it. Mm-hmm. Jack Hill. About 10 directors worked on it. It looked it. It was just shit. And to get 20 minutes of Karloff footage out of there was really a challenge.
Oh,
because it was so bad.
Yeah.
So, we didn't know what to do with Karloff. We didn't know what to. Obviously, all his life he's played heavies. We couldn't have him play a hero, so we didn't know what to do. And then one morning, I was kind of frustrated. I was shaving, I remember, and I thought to myself, I know. And I thought maybe I said to Polly, I can't remember now. I thought, I know what. We'll begin the picture in a projection room. The lights will come up, and Roger Corman will be sitting there next to Boris Karloff, and Boris will turn to him and say, "Roger, that is by far the worst film ever made." And then I thought, wait a minute, that's not a bad idea, actually. Maybe we should. What if? I said, "Wow, I've brainstormed. Karloff is an actor. What if he's an actor who wants to quit acting because nobody gives a shit about Victorian heavies anymore?" And I thought, geez, that's the whole picture. There it is. And I told Polly, and so that was it. We made him a movie star who does horror movies and wants to quit because the Victorian horror movies don't work anymore. And then so he said we should do something modern horror. And we cross-cut that because my editor at Esquire, Harold Hayes, had said to me, I don't know, a few months before, why don't you do a movie about that guy, Charles Whitman, I think his name was, who shot all those people in
Texas.
Where it was, Arizona. Yeah. You remember the incident? And I said, I don't want to do that. And then when we had Karloff and we had this idea about him being an actor who was quitting, I thought, well, then we could cross-cut with the modern horror, which is this kid who shoots his parents and his wife and goes on his killing spree, like, for no reason, just starts killing people. Mm-hmm. And I thought that's modern horror. So that's how the thing fell into place.
Oh, wow. Now, Polly Platt she was a film producer as well as an art director. I think the first female art director to ever be in the Art Directors Guild. You guys were together for a very, very long time. What was it like having somebody, as your partner that knows what you're going through, when you're working on all of these things?
Well, she had never done sets. She'd done some costume. She designed some costumes for a few plays. She hadn't done that much of that, but no set design. And when we we worked together for the first time in an off-Broadway play that I directed, a revival of Once in a Lifetime by Kaufman and Hart. And I said, do the sets too, Polly. And she was scared. She didn't want to do the sets. And so she didn't do the sets, and she just did the costumes. And then when we were starting to make targets, I said, you're going to do the costumes and the sets. We're going to give you production designer credit. And so she did it, and we worked on it, of course, together. And it turned out very well. She did a good job, and then we hired her. We gave her the same job on the Last Picture Show, and but that's where I fell in love with Cybill Shepherd, and she fell in love with me, and that was the end of the marriage, I'm afraid. And then I got her. I wanted to help her. So I loved her still, and so I asked her if she would be the production designer on the next picture I did, which was What's Up, Doc, and which just came out of the blue, that one. And she said yes, she would do it as long as Cybill didn't come on the set.
Wow.
She wasn't in the picture, so it wasn't
fair
request.
Great.
Yeah. Well, do you remember meeting Cybill Shepherd?
Oh, sure.
I mean, of course, I'm not a terrible, stupid question.
I wish you could see the look that I just gave Stephen.
He just shot me that question. What the fuck is the matter with you? How did you guys first meet?
Well, I was in a supermarket buying some toothpicks because I was trying to stop smoking. And so I chewed toothpicks for a while. Anyway, and
you chewed toothpaste for a while?
Toothpicks.
Toothpicks. Oh, okay. Sorry.
I was standing I was at the checkout counter at Ralph's or something, and there was, how they have magazines that they want you to buy that are right there at the checkout.
Yeah.
And there was an issue, a copy of a magazine called Glamour, which was sitting there, a bunch of them, and the cover was this blonde girl who was wearing a shirt that had little "I love yous" all over it. I love you, I love you. But the look on her face belied the sentiment on the shirt. I don't know that she loved me. She looked dangerous, and beautiful, which interested me. So I said, "Let's meet this guy." I did it. Almost a Hollywood moment. I tore the cover off and said to my assistant, "Find this girl."
Nice.
So it turned out she was a top model. She had won the Model of the Year contest a couple of years before. That doesn't exist anymore, but she won it. And
sure.
And she'd never done a movie. She turned down a couple of movies that were fairly prominent. One of them was, I can't remember which one it was, but there was one that was, I can't think of what it was for. Anyway, and she liked the script, and she said, I said, I'd like to meet her. So I was in L.A., but she was in New York. But I flew to New York to do some other work for the picture, and I said, I'll see some actors now while I'm here. So they arranged for a meeting, and she came up to the Essex House with her manager, or her agent, I don't know who it was, but a woman. And I thought, geez, she's tall. She was very tall, and she was wearing blue jeans and a jean jacket. And I had just had breakfast, and the breakfast tray was sitting on a coffee table in front of the couch, and I was sitting on the couch. And for some reason, she came over and sat on the floor in front of the coffee table and in front of me. And then there was, how the room service sends up a little vase, sometimes with a single flower in it for breakfast. And there was a rose there, in a little small rose, one rose in a small vase. And while she was talking to me, she started flipping the rose with her finger, like back and forth. And I thought that's how she would deal with men. Off their head. That gesture got her the part.
Wow. Oh my God.
And I felt so stupid thinking that's why she should get the part. I like the way she flipped the rose. And then I remembered that George Cukor, a very good director, had said to me that the reason he cast Katharine Hepburn in her first movie, Bill of Divorcement, was because he liked the way she put down a cup of tea on the floor. I said, really? He said, yes. She did it. She did it with her whole body. And I thought, that girl. And she got the part.
Well, we just spoke with Zach Galligan, who was the star of Gremlins, and he said that he asked Spielberg why he cast him in Gremlins, and he said the reason is because at the end of his audition, he put his head on Phoebe Cates' shoulder and sighed, and that was enough for Spielberg to feel like he was in love with this girl, and that was enough for him to cast him, and that was.
It's funny, isn't it? Little things like that make a difference.
Yeah.
It does.
Well, it also shows a lot of insight on your part because Cybill Shepherd, I was a big fan of Moonlighting. I don't know about,
Yeah.
That is totally encapsulates her persona,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The foresight that you had is pretty amazing on that.
Yeah.
Well, it was great. It was a fortuitous moment.
Yeah.
Ruined my life, but I'm kidding. Fucked up the marriage.
I have heard far worse excuses for a marriage ending than Cybill Shepherd. Yes. That's a pretty good one to have under your belt.
Nice.
Yeah, we were there for we were together for 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. I know that I want to get to talking about the some of these other directors that you're part of this the new Hollywood of directors, which includes Scorsese and Spielberg and Coppola. Did you spend time ever interviewing any of them or spend time were you interested in talking with them?
Not even remotely.
Not even kind of?
No.
Wow.
I never interviewed any of those guys.
Wow.
Really?
I didn't think they could teach me anything.
Yeah. No, I believe that. I mean, your time that you spent with Hitchcock seems like that.
Oh, he was great.
Oh my God.
He was great. He was one of the best interviews because he actually liked to talk about how he did it and how he did the shot or why he did the shot. Whereas other directors like Hawks didn't want to talk about Ford. Ford was the worst. Ford would not didn't want to talk about anything. But
really,
God, he was funny. Ford. He was really funny. People were very, very perverse. Hawks told me the story about Hawks made Red River and with John Wayne, and a lot of people thought that Ford had directed it because John Wayne and the Western, and Ford made a bunch of them with Wayne. And so Howard tells me, he says, people would come up to Jack and they'd say, we liked Red River, and he'd say, thank you very much. He just took the credit.
Yeah, just like yeah.
But anyway, that amused Howard.
I love it. That's amazing.
Howard Hawks was the coolest guy I ever met. He was so cool. He was pretty much the coolest guy I ever met until I met Tom Petty, who was maybe a fraction cooler.
Yeah. Now, you directed a documentary about Tom Petty, is that right?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
And how did that come together? Because that's one of your more recent things you've done, because that was only about 10 years ago?
Yeah, it was about 10 years ago, I guess, now, maybe a little less. Well, it was weird. A friend of mine, George Draculius, who's a record producer and a good friend, became a good friend of mine, and he calls me up one day and he says, how would you like to do a documentary about Tom Petty? I said, why? He said, well, I was talking to Tom. Tom and the Heartbreakers, his band, have been together for 10 years, I guess it was then. No, it was more than that. It was about 20 years, 30 years. I don't know. It was a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to do a 30-year anniversary documentary. And I said to him, and George is now talking, he says, I said to Tom, how about Bogdanovich? Because he knew me and we were friendly. And Tom eventually said, can we get him? And then George called me and said, can we get you? And I said, well, yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I'd have to meet him and see how I think after I meet him. He said, okay,
yeah,
we'll arrange it. I hung up the phone. I turned to whoever I was with. I guess it was Louise. Yeah, it was Louise. And she says, I said, who's Tom Petty? And she said, I said, what is he? Is he I said, well, was he a singer or something? Mm-hmm. She said, he's one of the premier rock stars in the country. Why?
Yeah.
I said, because I told her, and she said, oh, do it. So I did it. I met with Tom for about 3 hours and a half at a restaurant. I liked him enormously. Mm-hmm. And I asked him a lot of questions, and I thought this is the way to do the documentary, just ask him a lot of questions, he'll answer them. And then we'll show the... Anyway, mm-hmm. So when the documentary was 5 hours long, I said to Tom, it's getting a little long, don't you think?
Yeah.
He said to me, he said, it's getting a little long, don't you think, Pete? I said, well, yeah, it is. So we cut it. And I insisted that we not just play excerpts from all the songs, but to actually play a whole song straight through. Not all the songs, mm-hmm. but some of them at least straight through, because it shouldn't all be excerpts.
Yeah,
and that's one of the things that musicians who like the film, that's one of the things they commented on, was that you played the whole song. Anyway, it was finished at 3.5 hours, and I thought it played. It just played. So I said to Tom, I said, if it plays, it doesn't matter how long it is, and if it doesn't play, it doesn't matter how long it is. It still won't work.
Yeah.
So we finished it at 3.5 hours or something like that. We won the Oscar, the Grammy for best long form video.
Yeah.
Long form video.
Yeah, long form.
Emphasis on long.
Yes. Yeah. And
anyway, I love Tom. He came to be one of my best friends, and so tragically he died so young. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick before we continue the show, I want to talk about a third-generation, family-run business that I am very proud to be working with. Sennheiser is the top-tier microphone company in the world, and we are so lucky that we are now recording our show using Sennheiser microphones and their headphones. It's awesome.
We're talking into Sennheiser MD42 microphones and using Sennheiser HD25 headphones, and these sound amazing.
I mean, listen to Mike Black's voice.
Listen to the rich and sumptuous soundscape that comes out of my voice every time I speak into a Sennheiser.
Absolutely. Go check out their microphones and their sound equipment over at Sennheiser.com. All right, let's get back to the show.
Now, it seems like starting in about the 1990s, you really got into doing stuff in front of the camera more than you had earlier in your career, especially with things that you wound up being in, like The Sopranos later on is a big part of that show and all that stuff. Yeah. How have you enjoyed acting versus being behind the camera?
I loved acting. I always loved acting, and I wish I'd done more of it, frankly. I had to turn some things down that I wish I'd done, but at the time I couldn't do it, whatever it was.
Like what?
Sidney Pollack asked me to play the director in Tootsie.
Oh wow!
And I would have liked that. Yeah. I can't remember who did it now. Good actor, comedy actor, and I turned down a part in a few pictures. For the one about Tootsie was because it was shortly after Dorothy had been killed, and Dorothy Stratton had been murdered, and I just couldn't face it. Mm-hmm. Acting, and I wish I'd done it, but I didn't.
Yeah, it's understandable.
Yeah, of course.
My favorite thing was doing The Sopranos. That was really fun, and it was odd how that happened. That's thanks to Orson again, because I got a call out of the blue from David Chase, and he said, we're doing a special show of The Sopranos, No, sorry. That was when he was show running Northern Exposure, and he said, "We're doing a special show, unusual episode, to kind of celebrating Orson Welles." I said, "Oh, how do you do that?" He said, "Well, explain how he did it in the plot." And I said, "What do you want with me? Well, we'd like you to, since you knew him so well and you're a friend of his, we'd like you to sort of come up to Seattle, which is where they shot, and do some scenes about Orson." And I said, "Okay, sure, I'll do it." And so I went up to Seattle, and they shot it for a couple of days, 2-3 days. And after the first day, after he saw the dailies the first day, he says to me, "Have you ever acted before?" I said, "Yeah, I told him I started as an actor." I go, "Why?" "Because you have a lot of presence. You ought to act more." I said, "Oh, thank you." 7 years later,
Oh, my God.
he calls me and he says, "We're doing a show called The Sopranos." Yeah, I heard about it. I didn't see it, but I heard about it. He said, "And we have a therapist played by Lorraine Bracco who interviews this mafia guy, Tony Soprano, and she has such a tough time with him that she needs a therapist.
Yeah.
So we'd like you to play it." I said, "Oh, sure, I'll do that." We'd come down to the office and meet the writers, and that's what I did. And I did 15 episodes.
Yeah.
It was fun. I loved that part.
Yeah, it's a
you
terrific
were so
part.
fantastic.
The show's great.
That's
and
one of
you
those-
directed an episode, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I did direct an episode. Yeah.
God, that's,
One of the I did directed one.
Now, when you're directing an episode of a show like that has like a look and a feel to the way it goes, versus doing a film where you're sort of more in control of how that's going to be, how do you find that? Like, is that restrictive to you as a director, or are you just like, is it make it easier because some of the decisions are already made for you?
Well, that's true. What you just said, that makes it easier. But I find that I didn't really enjoy directing that because the actors all know each other. They've all been there. Everybody knows everybody. The director's kind of the guest.
Yeah.
And the director should be a director who should really be in charge of the whole thing. And I wasn't. So it was a little frustrating. No, it wasn't frustrating. It was in a way too easy. But I enjoyed it. I preferred acting in it, frankly.
Yeah.
There's something I wanted to ask you about when it comes to being interviewed, because you've talked to so many people, but you've also been interviewed by a lot of incredible people, and I just watched you on the Dick Cavett show the other night. I think last night I went and watched. It was you and Mel Brooks and
Frank Capra.
Frank Capra.
Yeah, Frank Capra.
And
Bob Altman.
Yes.
I mean, that's a murderer's row of filmmakers right there. That's amazing.
It really.
A very funny story about that.
Please.
Somebody told me that Dick Cavett, they had the show that I was on from Dick Cavett, and I thought to myself, I said to LB, to Louise, I said, that I don't remember saying a word on that show. I said it was Frank Capra and the two other directors, and I don't remember. I didn't say a word. I just sort of sat there, and so then they ran it, and I talked all the way through it. I took over for Cabot. I'm asking Capra questions, and I thought, Jesus Christ, I didn't remember any of that.
Wow. Dick
Bob
Cavett
Altman was very annoyed at me. Huh?
Yeah. Dick Cavett didn't say a word on the show. You just said all the words. Yeah.
I did say a lot. I like Dick. He's very, very funny.
Yeah,
that's so great.
Nice guy.
That's so great. Yeah. We have some questions from people who wrote in about having you on the show. So I thought I'd just throw a couple of these out there. Stephen Pearl, our dear comedian friend, said that you have a funny story about, or that his favorite story about you is that you've told is about Hitchcock in an elevator or something, but I don't know what that means.
That's a very funny story. Yeah. Well, Hitch was staying at the St. Regis Hotel in New York, and I was still living in New York, and I was still living in New York, and I knew Hitch by this point. I'd met him a couple of times, and I think I even interviewed him already. Yeah, I did. I had, yeah. And he invites me. He comes to town to promote Marnie, and he calls me up and says, "We're staying at the St. Regis. Why don't you come over for a drink tomorrow?" And I said, "Okay, sure, love to." So I get there, and it's about, I don't know, 5 in the afternoon or something. And I come into the hotel room, and there's a room service table with a whole shitload of booze. But I didn't know what it was. I don't drink. I never have. And not that I have any moral reason for it. I just don't like the taste. Yeah. So he says, "Have a frozen daiquiri." Well, it's Alfred Hitchcock, so I didn't want to.
All right.
And he'd already had a few. It looked like he's not having any pain at all. And his wife, Alma, was there too, and she had a couple of drinks. And so they gave me the fucking frozen daiquiri, and I just put my tongue to it a little bit, but I didn't drink it, really. Mm-hmm. And after about 15 minutes, Hitch turns to me and says, "You're not drinking your drink." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." So I took a sip. Mm-hmm. And about 10 minutes later, he says it again. "You're not drinking your drink." Well, fuck, I drank that whole fucking thing. And I was so buzzed. We went out it was time to go. He was going to dinner with Alma, and I walked out to the elevator, and and he starts talking about, I had run out of questions. I just couldn't think anymore. I was so drunk. And buzzed anyway, because one drink did it to me. I just
sure, yeah.
So we go into the elevator, and we're on the 25th floor, and on the, I think it was the 18th floor, three people actually came into the elevator, dressed for dinner. And at that moment, as soon as the doors closed on them, Hitch turns to me and says, "Oh, it was quite shocking. There was blood everywhere." And I was so buzzed that I thought somehow I missed a paragraph somewhere, because I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. But he goes on. "It was quite shocking. There was blood everywhere, coming out of his mouth, out of his ear." And he goes on like this, and two more people come into the elevator around the 10th floor, 6th floor, I think. And he goes on, and of course he'd been doing that TV series, Hitchcock Presents, for about 10 years, so everybody knew who he was. Everybody recognized him. And he went on about this guy on the floor with blood coming out of everywhere. And so fine, and this goes on for a few beats, and then he says, "And I thought, good God," I said to him, "Good God, man, what's happened to you? And do you know what he said to me?" And just at that point, the doors to the lobby opened, and everybody in the elevator didn't want to move. They all stood there.
Yeah.
And Hitch walks right by them. They all clustered by the door of the elevator, and they walked right by them.
Just left them hanging.
and without saying a word. And I'm walking with him. I'm so confused. And I turn to him. I say, so what did he say, Hitch? And he says, "What? Oh, nothing. That's just my elevator story." Isn't that amazing?
Wow. That's why he's amazing. The master of suspense.
He really is.
Yeah, that's right. He did it again.
He's the best. Peter Bogdanovich, this is an absolute honor and privilege to get to chat with you, and we're such huge fans of you and of your work and everything. And this was really incredible, man. Thank you for
thank you
for chatting with us and doing this.
I enjoyed it. Good question.
So cool.
Thank you.
So cool. For fans of you, like, do you have a website or anything like that, or should we send people to the Netflix film?
No, I have something. I have a pod. I don't know what the hell I have. And I don't know. I must have a podcast, but I don't know.
It's more than fine.
How about
I don't have a no. I know what it is. I don't have a podcast, but we're working on getting one put together.
Okay.
How about a Twitter or a Instagram?
There is a Twitter. There's a blog. Well, this might be an unofficial Twitter.
Just leave it.
He doesn't matter.
No, I had something called Bogdanovich,
Yeah,
Yes.
there we
There
go.
we
There
go.
is
Okay.
there is a
That's the
Bogdanovich.
thing.
Yes. Okay.
which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
name for it. Yeah.
I love it. That's
awesome.
hysterical. There's so many great interviews with you online. So I mean, just any there's fans can check you out in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Mike Black, where can people find you on the internets?
At Mike Black Attack on all social media.
Of course. Matt Walker.
I have links to everything at funnymatt.com, and if I send Peter Bogdanovich an email with 57 possible changes to Paper Moon for a theatrical version, he can write back to me at mattwalkersucks.com.
Absolutely.
Yes.
People do that. You can always get me at Stephen Glickman on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and all the other places. Peter Bogdanovich.
I have an Instagram.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
But I rarely use it. But there's some nice pictures on there.
Oh, that's
What's it called?
Let's see.
I don't know.
If we look your name up, we'll find it.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is a verified account. It is look up Peter_Bogdanovich on Instagram, and
Perfect.
there's a lot of beautiful pictures on there from
I'm going
there's
to
some
follow it
fun
right now.
cool things for
Great.
sure.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
again for doing this. We'll talk real soon.
Okay.
Thanks, Peter.
Stay in touch.
All right,
Bye.
You too.
Bye.